One very important thing is you need one driver, either it's a business driver or a passion driver. Luckily, it was for me, it was passion because that gave me the curiosity into learning everything that I want to learn. In my office, we used to have this IIT professor. He introduced the idea of Bitcoin. I literally debated with him saying, hey, how is that possible? Then it's free money. Then he said, hey, do you even know what's the concept of money? Money is just a belief system.
Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast, where we share inspiring startup stories with practical takeaways for you, the listener. Today's guest is Sid Menon, who's the founder and CEO of Tegro. It's a company that's aiming to fix economics, market quants, and liquidity in Web3 gaming. Before Tegro, Sid co-founded Wazir X, which is India's biggest crypto exchange, with tens of millions of users, and they were eventually bought out by Binance. You'll realise Sid is a serial entrepreneur who loves solving problems. While he's now an expert in the Web3 space, he's actually an expert in company building in general, and he's built many companies before that, such as Crowdfire. This was a fascinating conversation, and there's so much to learn from him. Let's go into the show. Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook, Sid. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me here. Really looking forward for this.
So you've got a really interesting background in how many companies you've created and your different journey. And now you're obviously into the crypto world and the Web3 space. But you actually started way back in college with entrepreneurial talent. So what made you become an entrepreneur right in those early days?
So I never had a target of becoming an entrepreneur. I think it's just the life that took me there. So while I was in college, I did geology. So it was the easiest degree to get because for me, degree was just a namesake. While then I was building robots, robotic stuff, and I used to go and compete in engineering college, which is completely not my field, and sort of win some battles, robotic battles, and one thing led to other, right? So then I also got interested in computers, so I used to build websites, more of community website. I had a tech website, a forum. So these all things kept me engaged into these kind of things, and I could not imagine, working somewhere else, right? Because this is like creativity, doing it on your own, and everything about it. And obviously, I was more driven by passion and not by business. So I was like, hey, I want to do this more, and that's how the journey started. And I think somewhere I got a first opportunity to build a product for somebody else, and I said, hey, I can do it, I can build it. And we did that, and it was really amazing, right? So that's how the first step got in. But there was a turning point for me, in fact, when I was just starting, and I was very passionate about flying. So, I come from my dad was a pilot, and I always wanted to fly, passionate about flying. And I was getting this whole licensing thing done. And I had to make a choice between taking the visa for flying to go abroad and do it, or continue, building my business, which was just probably 3 or 4 months or 5 months into it. And I had to think about it. Should I do this or do this? This is my passion. This is what I always love doing it. But should I do this? And somewhere it stuck me saying, hey, you know what? If I do this, that is, go and do flying, I'll be flying for somebody else all my life. And if I do this, there is a tiny bit chance that I might fly for myself. And I said, I want to take that chance. That was like a clarity in my mind where I was so confused about this versus that, saying I want to do this, be an entrepreneur.
So did you carry on flying for yourself in the end?
Now I'm at the place where, where I'm considering, joining flying school and start learning. So far, I'm playing with RC helicopters. I'm still keeping it alive. But I think it's now the time where you can actually, learn flying and do it for yourself rather than somebody else.
With this early business, obviously, because like you said, you didn't really have a business background. You studied geology and you're doing it out of passion. Did you find any hard lessons as you went along right in this early companies where you had to transfer it from a passion to a business and making those difficult decisions?
I think one very important thing is you need one driver, either it's a business driver or a passion driver. Luckily, it was for me, it was passion because that gave me the curiosity into learning everything that I want to learn from a passion point of view. Like I was a builder, so I just wanted to learn more about that. And that gave me the insight. But obviously, because you don't have the business idea of, saying, hey, if you make 10 rupees, yeah, if something costs you $10, you sell it for $15. If somebody else would probably sell it for $25, I would probably sell for $11, right? So it's not a business guy. But eventually, that is something that I learned over time. But as an advantage, the drive for passion for building literally helped me sort of build better products faster, build something that people love, or build something, at least in my mind, connecting that product market fit was much more easier than just thinking about business.
Yeah. And so you also created Crowdfire, right? And that was was that the next business that really took off and took you to the next stage?
Yes, so we had small wins before that. Again, I started with a service company, and then I said, hey, you know what, this is too boring. I want to build for consumer product, and I did my first another company called as Three Crumbs. I realized I was too early in the stage, because during that time, building only an app product was too early, because everybody would have a web and an app. And when I used to go to pitch VCs, they would say, "Hey, why are you building only for app? It's built for web." I said, "No, this is the next thing, big thing. You should build it." But probably I was a little too early for that. Anyway, I think fast forward, I had a couple of smaller success, and Crowdfire was a very good a journey where I was lucky to be working with another smart folks who've been building Just Unfollow and Crowdfire, and literally build the social layers or social marketing layer for the entire the social industry.
And like obviously from there, you then progressed into looking at Web3, and you like had a big interest in this. And where did that come from?
Oh, interesting. So I think I first got introduced to Bitcoin. This was way back in 2013, maybe. So in my office, we used to have this IIT professor. He used to come over, and he introduced the idea of Bitcoin. He said, this is digital money. It's just people own it. Everybody owns it. And I literally debated with him, saying, hey, how is that possible? Then it's free money. Why would somebody take money? It's that XYZ. And then he said, hey, do you even know what's the concept of money? Money is just a belief system. And then I paused myself there and started thinking, and then somehow just I forgot about it. But then it kept coming back, right? Trying to think about what is money, and trying to figure that out. And eventually I just got a little interested, and I started doing Bitcoin mining. This was probably 2015 or something around that. It was just something on the side. I'm a very DIY guy, so I thought, let's just try that out. So I was more involved in on and off into it, but not something that we completely put my mind into. And then I think I also started buying Bitcoin, more of a side thing, a little bit of if you have $100, $200, buy some Bitcoins. But then I think the real thing started off is when we were building Wazir X, Crowdfire. Crowdfire was a product which literally helped people grow on social media, and it eventually used Facebook APIs, and Twitter APIs, and other such systems. And what was happening was, it was sort of competing with some of the products, that is their ad products, right? People could grow easily with Crowdfire versus paying so much to any of these corporates, and that was a bad thing from the corporation point of view. And they started restricting us, and then we realized, hey, the power of centralization, how that can be bad for us. And then we were very anti-centralization, and that's the time that whole the Bitcoin revolution again started coming in 2017. And we said, hey, you know what, we want to build something more decentralized, and so that people have more power rather than corporation having more power. And we started building something called as Pi, which was just before Wazir X. It was more like a decentralized content creation, where people have access to their content and nobody can take it down and things like that. But then soon we realized we were too early to do it. And then next thing that pivoted was running an exchange, because in India, the exchange experience was very bad back then. And we said, hey, we need a world class product coming here, and let's build something like this. And that's sort of how we came back to how I came back to crypto, and we started building this. And the best story is, the moment I think 3 months into building, we launched Wazir X, and within 20 days or 30 days, RBI, that is like a Federal Bank of India, announced saying, "Hey, there's a banking ban on crypto businesses." And we're like, "Hey, without this, it's completely useless. Like, how do we even work?" And me and my co-founder, I think probably we finished with probably a one pack of cigarette between us, and trying to figure out, should we just shut it down or should we just continue? It's just been 20 days since we launched, and what do we do? And till now we've been fighting corporation. Now here we are fighting a country government, and then somewhere we realized, let's do it. That was the thing. That was the difference for us, saying let's do it. We'll figure this out. And I think that's how we started this whole Wazir X, and more committed to that, and slowly built onto it.
Yeah, if you go back to the banking ban there as well, like that emotion must have been crazy, right? Because if you just spent 3 months building something that you really believed in, you thought was going to do it, like make a big change, then the government comes in and basically says it's illegal now. How did you pivot that? What did you do in order to keep Wazir X going, in spite of the ban?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is not just us, right? You have the entire team. The entire team is relying on you, is believing in you to say, hey, these guys have figured it out. These guys will do it, and people have loans, mortgages, everything. And we were like, hey, what do we do? It was again paralysis, right? The moment you hear this news. But I think over time entrepreneurs are sort of built for these things, I assume. We just had the thing that we have to fight this, right? We just had the thing, we did not know how, but we said, hey, we will do it. Let's just fight it. It's better than fighting a corporation. Let's just do this, because we know this is an inevitable future. Probably not right now, maybe in future. And that was very strong within us, because we could see, we understood. As in, when we got more involved, we started believing in this, and we realized, hey, this is an inevitable future, and we have to do this. And the way we did this was, we knew that we need to find a way around where we are not using banks. I sort of locked myself in a room and started sketching things out. How do the money moves? How can we work, and etc. And figured out a P2P exchange. It's where we don't touch people's money, and it's just like an escrow system. And then again, it was very hard for anybody to get started. So as we built a world's first P2P auto order matching exchange, and this was very innovative, and that changed the game for Wazir X. Why? Because till then, Wazir X was the smallest and the youngest exchange, because there were other guys who were doing millions of trades, and Wazir X was probably doing thousands of volume per day, right? So not even comparable. But then once we started innovating this, slowly we started getting people to Wazir X, and because this was the innovation that changed for us. And over just 1 year, through all these innovation, we became the number one.
Yeah, and like it's incredible, like you said, like the switch from being one of the earliest starters in quite a saturated market of different big players there, to then becoming the number one. And like, how did people hear about Wazir X? How did you get that message out there that you were doing something a bit different?
Yeah, I think it was very difficult, but most importantly, I think Web3 itself is a very community-driven industry. People know each other, people support each other, and we were there to sort of give the trust to people, right? Very important, because when we started, being very transparent about how we do it. My co-founder Nishchal was very actively talking about everything that is happening. Even a bug that happens, we say, "Hey guys, we screwed up. There's a bug. We're fixing it right now. We're doing it." And the team also sort of dedicated to the people. So the way we worked was, we were trying to. So obviously, from a function point of view, we are doing great things, but also morally, we want to be more transparent and open about how we do things, right? And that literally helped us, and compound. Had a very compounding effect within a year's time. And technically, it's a marketplace, so marketplace needed liquidity, and we built everything for that, right? So any marketing we did, anything that we did, was primarily around that. And when I say marketing, Wazir X never spent even $1 for paid marketing. It was always community and people and everything around it. And it took us some time, but 1 year. But ultimately, good quality product, important trust, and sort of believing in your users to do to sort of help you grow, sort of paid us in the long term.
And then obviously Binance came knocking, right? And eventually bought Wazir X. How's that experience? Was that with your other companies? Was it the first time it'd been bought by somebody else, or you went for an acquisition process? How did you find that?
Yes, I think it was a very interesting time, right? This was 2019, and India was going through a lot of turmoil. There was people talking about complete ban, crypto is bad. Some people say crypto is okay. There's so much happening, and of course, our team is also going through that, right? So some of their bank account was getting frozen because they were working in a crypto exchange. So it was very difficult for I really thank you to my team for believing in us. But still, it was a difficult time for all of us right there. But we were still doing a great job, both in terms of market cap, what we were doing. We literally kept the crypto revolution happen in India even during this dark times. And then we met Binance, and we just felt like, hey, you know what? These guys know much better than what we know. And if we want to grow, we need to have a better perspective and bring this on board. And then this acquisition happened, and this gave us access to the entire Binance network. Even with CZ, I think I remember the first conversation we had. He said, you guys are seasoned entrepreneurs. You guys know how to do it. You just let us know when you need our help. I was like, wow, that's crazy, right? And I think that's how we started growing, right? Like within finance, a lot of learning right there, and we were able to sort of make Wazir X even bigger. And I think in 4 months' time after the acquisition happened is when the banking ban was lifted. So we were also fighting in Supreme Court against this banking ban, and it took 3 years for us to sort of come out of it. But the third year, this happened, and after that, the entire market just kicked off.
Yeah, and like working under Binance, because obviously you then were now an employee in some ways. How was that transition? Did you enjoy working under a larger company? And then how did that feel?
So one good thing about for us, at least, I can tell you, Binance never got involved. They gave us the entire freedom to how we
Yeah.
want to work, and as long as we meet everything. And I think Wazir X did an exceptional job in terms of meeting all the KPIs and everything around it. So we never had a problem right there. And in fact, it was a more other way around, where there was a lot more support. So we were involved in how Binance works and sort of learn from that. So we never had like a typical corporate relationship, or the things that literally I hate. But luckily, that was not the case. It could have been, but in our case, I think it was complete independence that literally helped us. So we basically had the best of both worlds at that time. And I think Binance was doing a great job. Even Binance was also very small in 2019 compared to now. And we were involved in terms of how Binance was expanding their markets across different world, and we learned from that and those playbooks, and sort of applied to what we are doing here.
If we look the other direction as well, what do you think, like, was Zero X, like, what did you potentially teach Binance, or from what did they learn from your experience?
I think Binance had a very bigger perspective of things. We probably had only India perspective, and I think we had a very deeper India perspective, which is not something that you can just crack on a daily basis, right? India was very different as a market. I know a lot of external companies, including Coinbase and many other companies, tried to crack India and could not. It's a very different dynamics. So that perspective was there. Again, we were builders, so we were building new products, new types of products, which literally when we could exchange that with exchange notes with Binance on that. Those are the things that I would say. But I think overall, they also figured out how things work. And even though for their scale, they're an extremely dynamic company.
Yeah. So, like, as you said, that like working for a Zero X and Binance has been incredibly interesting. But now you're launching a new product, right? You're launching Tegro, and that's in the crypto gaming space. So where did that interest come from? Has gaming always been something you've loved, or is it something which is kind of developed over time?
I think it took a long time, right? So when I was in college, I used to play a lot of Counter Strike. I used to play a lot of games, and also used to make Counter Strike maps. So I used to make maps, put it out, and play with my friends, and then come back and tweak certain things, to make sure both sides are balanced. But that's I'm a big fan of games in general. But obviously, being an entrepreneur, you'll never get that time. But in 2018, when I was more involved in crypto, I realized that gaming was a natural fit to crypto, right? In general, because in-app currency existed in games even before crypto. Digital assets existed even before that. I just felt that, hey, you know what? This seems like the best fit. Let me invest into these games. I started investing in 2018. Little by little, I started putting my money there. And by the end of 2018, I lost a lot of money. Right, like there was like so many blockchain games that did not. They literally crashed after this. And while I was building Wazir X, and at Wazir X, I was building the market for Wazir X, right? So Wazir X is a marketplace, and I was like, hey, what happened? Why did this perfect combination of crypto and games? Why is it not working? So I said, hey, let me go more deeper into it. And I started going more deeper into these games, hey, what happened? And to my shock, I realized that, hey, you know what? These games don't even have basic economic structures, fundamental economics to sustain what needs to, happen for a micro economy to sustain. And I was like, oh, this is the reason why I lost money, and this is the reason that I lose money also, right? And then what happened was I started working with one of the games, and they were also almost at the verge of collapsing. I said, hey, let's rebuild this economy, and focus on liquidity, because at the end, these Web3 games are built around what happens on the market, right? If there is good market demand, the game also has in general demand. So in general, even today, recession happens because there's less demand in the stock market, right? So similarly, within the games also, they have a very similar micro economies. And I started rebuilding the economy with them, and this is by through a lot of experiments. So not that I knew everything what has to be done, but simply applying some fundamentals of the real world economy. And one thing led to another, and one thing led to another, and the game started becoming sustainable and profitable. And I realized, oh, dude, this is the next big thing. And in that whole journey as well, and I think the game is now 4.5 years old. In the whole journey as well, what I realized is how different this user base is, right? People are, because it's very different than a normal crypto people. Because I'm dealing with crypto users at exchange, at Binance, and everywhere else, and I see there's a lot of similarities. And then I realized, hey, you know what? It's very difficult to sell them or tell people what is Bitcoin, because you need to tell them, hey, this is you need to tell them what is how money works. It is very difficult to tell people what is Ethereum. You need to tell people what's cloud computing, or for that matter, DeFi tokens. That's even beyond explanation, right? The only thing people do understand is probably the market, how the prices goes up and down, but the utility people don't understand. But then when I was talking to these users, I realized, hey, they probably don't understand Bitcoins, but they do understand what is digital land. They do understand what is digital water, digital anything, right? Digital assets within the games, because these things existed even before crypto. And then I was like, hey, if this is sustainable, if we can somehow build this sustainably, this is going to be next big thing. And I got more excited about it, and got more involved, and slowly that was like the basis of forming Tegro, because I believe the next big adoption is going to come from games for crypto. And it's very important to sort of build for that and build an ecosystem for that, to sort of help build this out in a big way.
And like considering like how where Wazir X did, was it difficult to leave and to create your own company and spin off into Tegro? Like how was that decision for you? Was it something which
Oh,
you were like overwhelmed by the new passion? You're like, I've got to do this, or was it like, oh, but I love this too? And how did you? Because it's another thing, like when you're in the early days, right?
it is still the most toughest decision, right? It's the most tough, because here you're so excited, and things are still growing, it's still reaching its peak. And then realize at the peak you're saying, hey, you know what? I want to do this now also, which is going to be again 0 to 1, right? All this while you worked on a company that went from 0 to 1 to maybe 10. Wazir X did 8 billion worth of monthly volume, or a 40 billion volume in to 2021. That's like a massive number. And from say 1,000 volume on day one to this, right? And now when you think about it, hey, you have to do that all over again from 0 to 1 because you're passionate about it. It's a very difficult challenge. But then you just know, you this is the opportunity, right? Web3 is that opportunity. And I said, hey, no, I want to do this, right? It's a calling. Till that time, so in between, what happened was I thought I'll become an investor. I'll start a fund and probably start funding people, funding good talent. But I got bored very fast. I was like, hey, this is not me. uh, I mean, you're not tinkering with things. You're not jumping with ideas. And I said, hey, this is not me. I think I need to do something. And when I thought about it, it just felt like, okay, this is what I want to do. And for the cost is to leave this and then come here. And yeah, I think it's a good start. It's worth it, and very excited today. Every day I get up, with a lot of adrenaline. Trying to think about getting more impatient into seeing the future. Right, you just have to wait this out.
Like, what were the lessons you took from building Wazir X to the size it grew to? Are you applying like straight away to Tegro? Like, what are the mistakes you made maybe with Wazir X that you don't need to repeat anymore because you've already made them?
Absolutely, I think tons of things, right? Tons of things. But I think this is a very important. There's a lot of entrepreneur learning which I want to tell everybody else, right? So Wazir X was a 30 people team, even when it was doing billions of volume, right? So, and our competitors were already at, I'd say, 50, 70, 80 people team, or maybe even 100. And what I want to emphasize is it's not about number of people; it's about the efficiency that you want to bring in. I think that way we were very focused on bringing that in, bringing efficiency per person. That's one of the most important things. Second thing is, it's not always pay money to get big, right? Marketing is not about spending money or putting on ads. The best way to market, and I think that's something that we also learned from Crowdfire, which had about 21 million users, is that your people will market things for you, and you should build for that, right? Think about ways, how can your product get more people in, and that needs a bit of design within your product to build that out. I think these are very two important learning, and rest of things are more technical learning. Trying to see how the industry is going. Like when in 2017 where we were and what is it today, it's fantastic, right? 2017, so in 2017-18, by the way, I was going to a lot of game studio trying to convince them, saying, hey, build for crypto, build Web3 games, or build a blockchain game. They used to literally hang up on me. They're saying, hey, crypto is Ponzi. And now the Axie thing happened, and now everybody is like, "Hey, you spoke about this. Let's have a discussion on that." Right? The things have changed, so it's funny, but it's how things are changing, and I think there are more believers compared to 2018.
Obviously, at the moment, there's a lot of talk about a crypto winter and people being worried about what's happening with the prices going down. Is that something that worries you at all, or are you just taking the more long-term view where in the end, as you said, things are inevitable, it's going to keep growing? Or how much of this like short-term fluctuations worries you?
Yeah, I think I'm a live example of, Wazir X was built in the crypto winter, in the bear markets. And I think I'm a very live example of that, saying that, that's the time to build. It's not what people are saying, it's genuinely the time to build. Two reasons, right? Everybody becomes more rational about the whole industry, which is very important. Bull markets is where everybody goes crazy, ideas gets just floating around and people get invested. But when it in the bear market is when you also become rational and the entire industry is rational. So that's where you create the real value in general. And I think a bear market is needed for something like this. So I'm definitely not worried about bear market. In fact, I see that as an opportunity. Because I do believe what I'm working on is an inevitable future, that is crypto and games and the whole entire thing. It just needs some time to be built and to build it right. So I think to me, I'm more excited about it. It gives me the time to build it out, and go to market maybe. and see that growing.
And where do you see like Tegro growing to? Because obviously you're launching soon. What's the kind of ambition with it? Where do you want it to reach in the end?
Yes. So I think this is a very high level view, right? Like, so the entire in 2021, the entire gaming industry uh, had a revenue of almost $250 billion, right? Very close to that. And that's just the revenue. And when you think about it, right, the economics of games is in-app purchase. Okay, it's in-app purchase, and that in-app purchase is usually done by 1% of the active users. So that's it, right? That's just 1% of the active users. Now think about it. In Web3, everybody is part of the economy, right? Everybody is part of the economy. So in the current form, the gaming industry, if you look at the revenue, it's already at a $1.2 trillion industry. It's actually bigger than the crypto industry, which is now sub trillion, as of today. So when you think about it, if Web3 comes as an adoption to this gaming industry, this could easily, even in very pessimistically, double the entire industry to, 2 or $2.5 trillion industry, right? So it's massive. It's almost creating another entire crypto industry, which is just $1 trillion, in one of the existing sub industry, which is your gaming. And there's a lot of logics behind it, why, and because I've seen that happening, right? Most of the games probably have these in-app purchases, and it takes time to reach 200 or $100 million. But in Web3 games, a lot of games have seen a volume more than $500 million coming in. And when you look at that, you say, hey, this is just the initial glimpse, because not everybody has not got into it yet. And if it happens, I think it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry in general, and that also excites me, right? Like, because it's not something that you're working on, which is just small. With Wazir X, you were able to build $1 billion industry. Now the thing is, how do you build a multi-billion-dollar industry and work for it? And that's the biggest bet that sort of excites me to sort of take and work towards that.
And like with the company itself, like you're global at the moment straight away, right? Or are you focusing on India first? Or how is that expansion looking?
Yes, I think today Web3 is a very global opportunity. It's not a country specific opportunity, and the internet itself is global, right? So for us, Tegro is a complete global opportunity to build. What we are trying to, we will definitely specialize for certain countries and help them grow faster. But it's a global opportunity, and I think everybody should be sort of participating in this.
Is that exciting for you? Because Wazir X was obviously very heavily focused on India because of the different regulations. Whereas I guess now with the Web3 gaming side, as you said, it's more global. So there's different audiences you could reach that maybe you couldn't have done with Wazir X.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was one more reason, right? Like, so it was either taking Wazir X to Web3 games or start something else, because Wazir X solved a on-ramp issue for crypto, and it had a very different DNA. Whereas from a gaming perspective and a global aspect, you needed something much more global. So and CrowdFi was a global product, right? So you just had a experience of how a global product looks like, how a country product looks like. I think it's just sort of bringing everything together to sort of make this now, which is more global Tegro.
And like, how did you structure like building the company? You said you've got to like 50 to 60 employees already, or even 100 potentially. How did you go about that from like day zero? Because obviously you had such a wealth of experience in building other companies. Like, what were the kind of shortcuts you took because you knew so much already?
No, in fact, it's a very small team. It's not even 50. It's 15, right? That's it.
Oh,
It's
15,
just,
sir. Okay, yeah.
yeah, it's a very small team, and currently, there's a small base in India where we are all working towards. And from a global expansion point of view, we have some people in Dubai, which is more open to crypto these days. We are setting up there. I think slowly and slow forth, we'll have a global team which will help us grow. But I think most importantly is taking that baby steps to sort of build that out. See the market, understand it, and then go and expand.
How did you find those initial people? Was it people you already connected with, or did you kind of hire new people you'd never met before?
I mean, finding people is the most difficult things, by the way. Like of all the things, finding the right people is the most difficult thing. And I, it's always even though today now I know more people, still to find the right, chess player, I would say, to build your team is the most difficult thing. I was also lucky to find my co-founder who's been running, a Web3, a gaming studio for a long time. The best part is, when it comes to Web3 games, I know a lot about the Web3 side of things, entire business model, and many, many things around it, and being there for some time. But I know very little about how games work, right? And it's important to have both the expertise coming together. I know more of, in the top side, how things, work, but how the evolution happened, many, many things that happen there. And that's where my co-founder Robbie comes in, who basically brings that expertise into play. That's just the basic beginning, right? And then forming the rest of the team is always a hard work. Calling each other, trying to convince. I think fundraising is much more easier than, than pitching your team to, form your team. So I think I always find it hardest, but I think it's always the worth, to take time to build your team.
Obviously, because of your background with Wazir X, was it difficult for you to convince investors that Web3 gaming was going to be a thing? Did you have any pushback of people maybe who were like 10 years ago saying that crypto wasn't a thing? Like, do you feel like you're now on that cusp of another revolution, like you said, where not everybody believes you yet? And does that motivate you?
I think in 2018 this would have been a definitely bad experience, like a very difficult experience, in fact, because the axie happened. There's obvious thank you that happened. Thanks to that, at least everybody's open about it. But also there is bad market, bad games that has happened now. A lot of people losing money, so everybody's still questioning it. Is it yet or not? It's so we are just in between a lot of evolution that is happening. There will be fails, I think, and most of the investors are probably who are into Web3 games are probably just year or two into it. So for them, they have not seen the entire cycle yet, right? So you have to explain it to them, and there are a lot of folks who are very interested to understand that and now able to see this. So, from an investor point of view, I think we are lucky with folks who believe in us, what we are doing. They believe in our expertise into what we have done and our past, rather than just what we are saying. So I think that's more important. At the end, whenever you're starting a business, it's all about believing the team, betting on the team versus just the business idea.
You mentioned with a few of your other companies as well that you were potentially too early on it. How do you know like when's too early and when you think is the right spot to get in? Because I guess that's always a worry, right? It's like, what about if this is the right idea but it's the wrong time?
Absolutely. I think it's so for me, a lot of things were deja vu, right? Like, so my first company, I knew mobile was big, but I was a little too early. And I actually listened to investors who said, hey, you should have built this. And I wish I did not do that, right? So this time I was very sure that I believe in it. I've seen this happening. This is going to happen. So I'm going to work towards it. Maybe it might take its own time. But now, when it comes to timing itself, right? Yes, for example, I believe the social or consumer Web3 will come, but probably it's a little too early for that. Just like in real life, when the internet boomed, first always it's the gaming industry that picks up first. Even in the computer world, everybody starts with gaming first, then move to maybe Excel or Word, whatever. But so I believe that it's important that the gaming industry sets its stone first, which is the gateway industry to the consumer tech. That's why, from a timing point of view, I believe this is the right time for that gaming. And maybe right after that would be the evolution of the consumer tech or the social Web3. Based on all the learnings or all the reasonings that happened, this seems like the best time.
Like, obviously, because you know so much about Web3 generally, what opportunities do you see out there that maybe are other things you're interested in, but you don't have time to pursue? And maybe somebody listening can hear about the opportunity and think, wow, I'm going to go for that. And maybe it will inspire somebody to create the next big company.
I think more importantly, I mean, people figure it out, what they want to build. But most importantly, we need to know what's happening there, right? Just to give an idea, like for example, when we, I just always talk about this, the evolution of human, right, in general. So we started with the village, small village, do commerce right there, probably barter, and then you start with. Then we were moved to a city, or in the town or a city. In that, now more people are involved, so you bring in currency and you do that. And what happens is then you have a governance coming in, right? There's a political person who will manage rules and things around that. And then eventually we evolved to kingdom also had a governance and its own currency and everything around it. So every time we are just scaling, then came the country, right? So where we are all sort of have a border now, where we now have a currency and a commerce, everything within the country. Now what is next for us, right? And what is happening, what is this internet that has done is that it has created this, it's creating this super nation where it doesn't matter where you and me exist, right? Like, it's, we are borderless. We are sharing information across the world, and that is how we got started with internet. Now we are building the next phase of this super nation. We are building the finance layer of the super nation, where hey, we are talking about a native economy which only exists in this and not in the country. And that's the second layer. Then comes the governance. Hey, you know what? Now you don't need a government to govern an internet world or a super nation. We need a model where the governance happens on its own. So if you've heard about DAO, that is decentralized autonomous organization, these are early signs of how this can work. And when you step back and zoom out and look at it, you're saying, hey, you know what? We are building a super nation. And now all we have to do is, what does a super nation needs? What are the building Lego blocks for this? And when you look at it like that, you see opportunity everywhere. You see, all you have to do is go back and say, hey, how did a country form, or how did a village form, or how did it scale, and say, hey, you know what, something like this has to exist here as well. Something like that, whether it's early, late, but this has to exist. And how it has to exist, what is the role it will create, how it will evolve. Most of the fundamentals always remain same. It's just that the medium changes. And I think when I look at it like that, and I speak to a lot of people, when they put an idea, I said, hey, you know what, this solves this Lego blocks, or this solves this one, or it's little too early for this, and it's just easy to map in your mind. What's our journey as a humanity, and how we are building this world.
So at the time of the recording this, we're about a month away from your launch, or like in the next few weeks. How does it feel right now to be on the cusp of like your big launch? And what's kind of going through your mind? What are the things that you're excited about? What are the things you're nervous about? What's happening for you?
I think I'm very, very excited. So much that I'm probably only sleeping few hours a day, getting up early, then messaging my time. Hey guys, this. So these are 2, 3 things that we need to also think about and do things. So I really, really love this time. It's the best time. We are pretty excited. We probably will be doing a silent launch to start with, and then eventually do a lot more around it. But I think that 0 to 1, that first launch is always the most exciting time. After that, it's more of you're now used to it. Till now, you're just getting that idea that have been cooking for like long time. The team that has been thinking about it, both all, good, bad, everything. Now it all comes there, and it's to the public to now decide, whether it makes sense. So I think it's the most exciting time.
And like for the people going to like use Tegro, what are you most excited about for them? What do you really want to hear? What they think about, and what feedback you're going to get from them? What do you think is going to like wow them?
Right. I think the most important thing that we are kind of trying to do, right? So the entire economy works in two very important, spectrum. One is time rich and money rich, and this is not something new to Web3. It also happens in the real world. In the real world, if you are time rich, you work at a factory and get paid in wages to work there, and still help the economy to produce more things, right? So there's a lot of producer, consumer, and service economy that sort of works together. And I think we are solving a very important piece in that. That is the part where people make money by giving time to do certain things. In this case, it's playing the games, and sort of creating more value for people who are investing into games. So it's a very important part of the ecosystem, and a lot more people, if you do well, and if better games come over time, a lot of people would make money into it. When I say money, more of from a wages point of view, not just by trading things. And I think that would be very revolutionary because it's more like jobs on the metaverse, right? And the way I'm saying it is in the jobs for the gaming industry. So I think that would be a very very exciting time to see and see that evolve as well.
Like your passion has really come across during this interview, and like for the people listening at home who want to find out more about like both you and what Tigger is up to, where should they go to? Where can they find out more?
Yes, I think the best thing about Tegro, how we are building is by educating people, right? And I think there's a tons of things to learn. Both you, if you are an investor, trader, player, ever, we have newsletters, we have Discord where there's a lot of discussion happening. It's very collaborative. People learn from each other, not just from us. So make sure you follow us on Twitter, you follow us on join our Discord, go to our website for us, tegro.com. That's where you'll find all the links to it. And obviously, you can follow me as well, where I also talk about very generic, entrepreneurial journey and advice for everybody else. So I think there you go.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on.